So you're probably at a point whether you're a student in college with ADHD and you're having to do some things online, Zoom appointments with a teacher, virtual, appointments, or you're a parent and you're absolutely just frustrated because your kids have to do all these Zoom classes or just more things online, and you just don't know what to do because if you have ADHD, it's really hard to focus on a screen for that long. Oh my goodness, this is like the worst nightmare for somebody with ADHD. And I want to share a few suggestions and tips that might help you to be able to be better at this, with your ADHD child, or if you are a college student who is really struggling and you have ADHD, I'll have some tips for you. So let's get started right after this intro. How are you doing, my optimal mind? I know you're probably really frustrated with the whole new structure as far as learning, where it's come to be more virtual than actually in person in class. And this can be really frustrating for somebody who has ADHD. And if you're a parent here, well, welcome. And if you are frustrated as far as when it comes with your kid having to handle with all the stuff when it comes to have to do Zoom, actual virtual, class, things, that could just be so frustrating. So I want to kind of share some tips and suggestions that I have, because I certainly had to do this in college where things were a little bit more virtual, as well as even in medical school, they've been kind of adapting more of this lifestyle. And so I have some suggestions. But before we get started, I do have a free downloadable guide for adults who have ADHD, as well as parents who have kids with ADHD. If you're looking for, what labs to implement with ADHD, what nutrients, supplements, and foods to implement, and what foods to avoid, you can download that free guide in the description below. All right, so the very first thing that I would suggest, and if you are having class where it is a Zoom or Microsoft Team, whatever they're planning on using, there is definitely options to ask the teacher to change certain settings. And sure, it might be some accommodation for your child, but this is really important, or it's accommodation for you as the college student. That a big distraction and a big problem is seeing all the attendees and, kids or students, whatever, waving, distracting, doing something else. That could be so distracting. Never have we ever seen it where we actually are looking at the other students in a classroom. I mean, sure, you're sitting next to someone, but you're usually looking at the teacher. And so this could be really distracting. So what I would suggest is you need to ask your teacher to change the settings where all attendees are not viewed, where you can't see them. The only person that you see is the teacher. And sometimes this might require the school to upgrade their system on their Zoom or team meetings, but it doesn't really require that. They can actually change those settings, or even giving you the option to change settings where you don't see the attendees and only see the teacher. This will make a big difference for your kid who has ADHD, or if you as the college student who has ADHD, this will make a big difference. And so I highly encourage you to do that. The second suggestion that I would suggest, and this depends on your ADHD, whether you are the hyperactive type or if you're the inattentive type. Every person's ADHD is different, but I would still have the option to ask your teacher to allow you to record the actual, class, to be able to record it. Sometimes they have those settings off, and ask if you can actually record it, or if they record it for you and give you the video beforehand. Not beforehand, but give you the video after the actual class is done. Because what this does, and especially if they can give you the option to 2 times speed it, because sometimes teachers, depending on if they're really monotone, very slow, it's hard for us ADHD brains to stick for a long period of time watching someone who's very monotone. I know I really struggle with that. If I had teachers who were really just monotone, this is what we are learning today. I'm sorry, us ADHD brains are just not going to be able to focus with that. But you can ask them to get the recording, and you could 2 times speed it. So you could do it 2 times or 1.5 times the speed, and it quickens how fast they speak really, really, really fast. This really kind of sometimes can really help with some ADHD brains to be able to kind of digest the information, but sometimes it might be too fast for you. So you can actually slow it down, maybe half the speed, or 0.75 the speed. This can also be really helpful if you find that your teacher's speaking too quickly. But if you have the recording, you could always pause and replay, rewind back if you need to. This gives you the option, and maybe even for students to not have to watch the live one. Maybe the live one's going to be too distracting, and ask your teacher if it's possible, if you give us a recording, that you can watch the replay instead and be able to do it at your own pace. So it depends. You're going to have to ask your teacher, but it doesn't hurt to ask your teacher. This is a big suggestion that I would recommend doing. Something that was really nice when teachers would offer that option for me in college, also in medical school when they had that option, really made a big difference. Okay, and the last suggestion that I want to give you today is when you are in the class and you're doing a virtual class meeting, is be able to do mind maps. So, trying to listen to someone for hours, especially for you students who have to be sitting in a Zoom, class back to back after each other for 6+ hours a day. I really feel you guys' pain for having to do something like that. But do mind maps. So what made me that is getting a piece of paper, and instead of just taking casual notes, is draw stuff out of what they're talking about, having a central idea of the topic. And I don't care how long you take it, because even doodling can really help you still pay attention more than trying to sit there, especially for ADHD brains, to just sit there and focus for a long time. But draw something, have a central idea of what the main topic of that class that is, and then branch out of the other key factors of that topic, and maybe write a few notes on each one of those pictures. But this is a way to get you a little bit more engaged using your other brain, because the right and left brain, the right brain is more creative, the left brain is more logical. If you use both actively, you're going to retain the information better, and this is really effective with people with ADHD. So hopefully you guys found that very informative, and hope you can use those suggestions to help you out during this crazy time as far as when it comes to just using these types of tips. And if you want further guidance on, when it comes to what labs you should run for ADHD, what nutrients and supplements and what foods you should be implementing, you can download my free guide in the description below for both adults with ADHD as well as with parents who have kids with ADHD. So until next time, this is Dr. LeGrand, and remember, you have an optimal mind. Thanks. Bye.